Okay, so we're looking at solving. So we're gonna solve by graphing. We're gonna learn how to factor later. Tomorrow we're gonna be looking at how to solve by factoring. But today, let's take a look at how to solve by graphing. Now, the first graph, if you notice, these two are equal to y. So in reality, I'm looking at the first equation. I'm looking at the second equation. I know they're both look equal to y. So I want to know what value of x makes them equal each other, right? When are they going to equal each other? What value of x? So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to graph the first one. We learn a few ways how to graph by vertex form, intercept form, and how to graph from standard form. So I'm going to graph this. Okay, I'm looking at the first equation. I'm going to graph it using standard form. Now I need to find the x value of that one. So remember, my a value on that is my a is 2, my b is 4, and then my c will be -1. I don't need my c. But my x value or my intercept, I remember the formula negative b over 2a. So I'm looking at this as a -4 over 4. So my x value is -1. Now for my y value, once again, I'm looking at my vertex. Using the equation, I'm going to use -1 for x. So I have 2 times a -1 squared plus 4 times a -1 minus 1. So again, use a calculator if you need to. Let's see, 2 times -1 squared. So that's 2 times 1. So 2 minus 4 minus 1. That gives me -3. So I know my vertex. My vertex, I'm going to say, is the point -1, -3. That's the vertex, right? So I'm going to create a chart of x and y. My vertex is right here in the center, -1, -3. Let me choose two values smaller than -1. So let me choose -2, -3. Two values bigger than 1. So let me choose 0 and 1. And I'm going to find, using my formula, y is equal to 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. I'm looking at the y value of these 2 points, -2 and 0. Okay, so like I said, I'm looking at the y value of those 2 points. I'm going to use one of them, and the other one gets the same y value. So I'm going to use x equals 0. I'm going to use the value of 0 for x. So I'm going to write this as y. It's equal to 2 times 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 1. And I get that my y value is -1. So these 2 points get -1 for the y value. Good. Now let's take a look at, I'm going to use blue for this one. I'm going to look at the y value of these 2 points. I'm just going to find one value, and then the other point gets the same y value. So I'm going to use x equals 1. We could use -3, but I'm going to use 1. So let me use the equation. Y is equal to 2 times 1 squared plus 4 times 1 minus 1. And then I get, let's see, 2 plus 4 minus 1, it's 5. That gives me, I have 5 points. Let me graph all this in black. So first point is -3, 5. I have it right here. Then -2, -1. -1, -3. 0, -1. And then 1, 5. And if I was to graph this, looks like that. Now, the other equation, let me highlight this in green. I'm talking about the line y equals 5. That is, now y equals 5. Now, one thing I'm going to say, the x-axis, another name for the line x-axis is the name y is equal to 0. That's another name for the x-axis. Notice I switched the letter, right? X-axis, y equals 0. Because in reality, any point on that line has the y value of 0. So like I said, that's another name. So y equals 5. That's going to look like the x-axis is just the 5 lines above. So y equals 5 is this line. Now I see my two lines intersect right there. What I want you guys to do is tell me what are the values of x of those 2 points. My answer here will be -3 and 1. Now let's take a look at question number 30. I'm going to graph this one. There's two ways how we can graph this one. I'm going to use it standard form. I'm just going to go my A is 1. My B is 2. So my x value of my vertex is -b over 2a. So -2 over 2, which is -1. My y value is going to be, -1 squared plus 2 times a -1. So 1 minus 2 is equal to -1. So -1 is my vertex. I'm going to create a chart of x and y values, and I'm going to put my vertex right here in the center. I'm going to choose two smaller values of x, so -2, -3, two bigger values of x, so 0 and 1. I'm going to use that equation. I'm going to use, for these two values here, I'm going to use 0. So y is equal to 0 squared plus 2 times 0, which is 0. So my y values there are 0. Let me erase this. Now for the other one, I can use -3 for x, or I could use +1. I'm going to use +1 because it's a little bit easier. So y is equal to 1 squared plus 2 times 1, which is 3. Can erase this. I can plot my points. -3, 3 is right here. -2, 0. Have my vertex, -1, or 0, 0 right now. And then 1, 3. The other line, I see y is equal to 3. I remember the x-axis is y equals 0, so y equals 3 is 3 above. I'm going to for 1 point, one of my values is going to be -3. The other value is going to be +1. Right, I'm looking at the x value of each of those points where my two lines intersect. So my answer in this case will be -3 and 1. Some of you guys might have seen a couple other ways. Some of you guys might have seen the table. We'll probably again get information from the table, but let me continue on question number 31. Oh, coming back to number 30, because I said we could have seen this a couple ways. The first graph, to be honest, I could have just said y equals, I'm going to factor an x out of that, and then gives me x plus 2. So I could have done that using my intercept form. All right, x equals, I cross the x-axis at 0 and -2, which you guys can see from the graph. You can find the vertex and so on. So, all right. Now let's take a look at number 31. Why are you paying attention to the first equations? I'm looking at this right here. My a value is 1. My b value is 8. And I know the x-coordinate of my vertex, negative b over 2 times a. So I have -8 over 2, which is -4. All right, so my x value is -4. To find my y value, I'm going to go y equals -4 squared plus 8 times a -4 plus 12. So I'm looking, use a calculator if necessary. I'm looking at 16 minus 32 plus 12, so it's -4. So my vertex is -4, -4. I'm going to create a table. I'll put my vertex in the center. Let me choose two smaller values for x, so -5, -6. Let me choose two bigger values, -3, -2, and find the corresponding y values. Or in the first case, I can use y equals -5 or -3. I'm going to use -3. So I have that y is equal to -3 squared plus 8 times a -3 plus 12. So I'm looking at this as 9 minus 24 plus 12, which is -3. So my y values here are -3. For the next one, I can use y equals -6 or -2. I'm going to use -2. So y equals -2 squared plus 8 times a -2 plus 12. So I'm looking at this as 4 minus 16 plus 12, which is 0. Okay, so I have the points. Let me plot them in black. -6, 0. -5, -3. -4, -4. -3, -3. -2, 0. So I'm gonna say this looks something like this. My other equation, y is equal to -3. I'm thinking the x-axis is y equals 0. So y equals -3. It goes below. So it's this one. My x-axis, not the x-axis, the x value of the points where my two lines intersect are going to be the points -5 and -3. All right, lastly, let's take a look at question number 32. I'm looking at the first equation. Y equals -x squared plus 6x minus 5. My a value is -1. My b value is 6. My x coordinate is -b over 2 times a. So I have -6 over -2. So +3. That's my x value. For my y coordinate, my y value, I'm going to go negative 3 squared, so that the negative has nothing to do with my square, plus 6 times 3 minus 5. So I have negative 9 plus 18 minus 5, which is 4. So my vertex is the point 3, 4. I'm going to create a chart. I'm going to put my vertex right here in the center. You choose two values smaller than 3, two values bigger than 3. Matter of fact, I usually do two consecutive values. All right. I could choose 2 or 4 for x. I'm going to use 2. So I have y equals negative 2 squared. Right, the only thing I'm squaring is the 2. Negative 2 squared plus 6 times 2 minus 5. Remember that you must do the exponents before the negative outside. So I have negative 4 plus 12 minus 5. So it gives me that y value is 3. Right, all this was 3. Okay, now for the other values, I'm going to do that use x equals 1. So I have negative 1 squared plus 6 times 1 minus 5. So I have a negative 1 plus 6 minus 5, which is 0. So my y values are 0. Okay, so let me plot my points. 1, 2, 3. 3, 4. 4, 3. And 5, 0. And the other one, the other line is y is equal to 3. So I see where it crosses. I'm asking for the x values of those points. So they're going to be 2 and 4. Now I'm going to point something out. Those are the values where I get 3 for y. Just want to know where the x values, so 2 and 4. Okay, there you guys go.